County Road 17 stretches through miles of dense forest in northern Colorado. A narrow strip of asphalt surrounded by tall pine trees that block most of the moonlight at night. During the day, it looks like any other rural road used by truckers and locals trying to shorten their commute between towns. But after midnight, the road becomes something else entirely. The air grows unnaturally quiet. Animals seem to disappear from the surrounding woods, and drivers often describe a feeling that someone or something is watching them from the darkness between the trees. Most residents in nearby towns know about the road's reputation and avoid driving there late at night. Officially, there are no warnings or road signs about danger. Unofficially, everyone has heard the same stories whispered in diners and gas stations for decades. The first modern disappearance connected to the road happened in 1998, when a long-distance truck driver named Daniel Carter was heading east during a late winter storm. Daniel was an experienced driver who had spent more than 15 years hauling freight across the country, and he had driven through far worse weather before. At exactly 1:43 a.m., he contacted his dispatcher over the radio to report something unusual blocking the road ahead. At first, his tone sounded calm, almost curious, as if he expected the situation to be nothing more than a stranded traveler asking for help. But the longer the dispatcher spoke, the stranger his voice became. The calm confidence of a veteran driver slowly turned into confusion, then into something closer to fear. Daniel told the dispatcher there was a person standing in the middle of the road, about 50 yards ahead of his truck. The figure wasn't signaling, wasn't waving, and wasn't reacting to the truck's headlights. The dispatcher suggested he drive around the person carefully, assuming it might be someone stranded during the storm. But Daniel hesitated before answering. He said something felt wrong about the way the person was standing there. The figure wasn't moving at all, not even shifting their weight in the wind or raising an arm to shield their eyes from the bright headlights. Then Daniel said something that made the dispatcher fall silent. He said there were more of them now. A long pause followed over the radio as the dispatcher tried to understand what Daniel meant. The truck's engine could still be heard idling in the background, along with the faint whistle of wind passing through the microphone. Then Daniel spoke again, but his voice sounded distant and confused, as if he was seeing something impossible. He whispered that the road was suddenly full of people standing ahead of him, dozens of them, none of them moving, none of them speaking. The transmission cut off seconds later, and no further communication came from Daniel Carter that night. The following morning, police found his truck abandoned in the middle of County Road 17, with the engine still running and the driver's door wide open. For several years, the disappearance of Daniel Carter was treated as a strange but isolated missing person case. Police assumed he may have wandered into the forest during the storm and succumbed to exposure, even though no body was ever found. But the case began to attract renewed attention when other drivers started reporting similar encounters along County Road 17. These incidents followed a pattern that investigators couldn't ignore. Each driver reported seeing someone standing in the road ahead of them late at night. Each time, the figure appeared alone at first, illuminated by the headlights of the approaching vehicle. And each time, the situation escalated into something far stranger than a simple roadside encounter. One of the most detailed survivor accounts came from a woman named Laura Bennett in 2004. Laura was returning home after visiting her sister in a neighboring town when she turned onto County Road 17 shortly after midnight. The road was completely empty, and the only light came from her headlights cutting through the darkness ahead. About 10 minutes into the drive, she noticed a figure standing in the center of the road, roughly 100 feet away. At first, she assumed it was someone who had broken down or needed assistance. But something about the person's posture made her uneasy. The figure was standing perfectly upright, facing her car directly, as if they had been waiting there for a long time. As Laura slowed down, the headlights illuminated the figure more clearly. It appeared to be a man wearing dark clothing, but something about his face seemed strangely still. She realized after a few seconds that he wasn't blinking. He wasn't shifting his weight from foot to foot or raising his hands to block the bright lights. He was simply staring at her car with an expressionless face. Then Laura noticed movement at the edge of the road. Another figure stepped out from the tree line, emerging slowly from the darkness. Then another appeared behind it, and another behind that, until there were several silent figures standing along the shoulder of the road. Panic took over as Laura slammed her foot onto the accelerator and swerved around the man standing in front of her vehicle. As she drove past, she glanced into the rearview mirror and saw something that haunted her for years afterward. The figures were all turning their heads slowly in unison to watch her car disappear down the road. Their bodies remained completely still, but their faces followed her movement through the darkness. When Laura reached home, she discovered deep scratches across the back of her car, long marks stretching from one side of the trunk to the other. She later told investigators that it looked as if several hands had dragged across the metal while she sped away. Chapter 3. The investigation nearly 2 decades after Daniel Carter's disappearance. A journalist named Marcus Hale began investigating the strange events surrounding County Road 17. Marcus had grown up in the nearby town of Silver Pines, and like many local residents, he had heard stories about the road since childhood. People in town called it the Waiting Road, a nickname that never appeared in official maps or reports, but was whispered frequently in conversation. Marcus initially believed the stories were simply urban legends that had grown around a handful of tragic accidents. However, once he began examining old police reports and missing person files, he realized the pattern stretched back much further than anyone expected. The earliest documented case Marcus discovered dated back to 1952. According to a sheriff's report from that year, a man named Robert Klein had been driving home late at night when his vehicle was discovered abandoned in the middle of County Road 17. The engine was still running, and the headlights were pointing directly toward the forest beside the road. Investigators found footprints leading away from the vehicle and into the trees, suggesting that Robert had left the car voluntarily. However, the tracks stopped abruptly about 30 feet into the forest. There were no signs of a struggle, no additional footprints, and no explanation for how a full-grown man could simply vanish in the middle of open ground. Marcus began interviewing older residents in Silver Pines who remembered hearing about the case when they were children. Several of them described their parents warning them never to drive that road at night, though few could explain exactly why. One elderly man recalled a rumor circulating in the 1960s about drivers seeing groups of people standing silently along the roadside. Another claimed his uncle once turned his car around after seeing too many shadows moving near the trees. The stories varied slightly from person to person, but one detail remained consistent across every account. The figures people described were always standing still. After months of research, Marcus decided the only way to understand the mystery was to experience the road himself. He packed a video camera, an audio recorder, and a notebook before setting out for County Road 17 late one evening. His plan was simple: drive the entire length of the road while documenting anything unusual he encountered. At first, the trip felt disappointingly normal. The forest was quiet, the road empty, and the only sound was the steady hum of his car moving through the darkness. But about 20 minutes into the drive, Marcus noticed something ahead of him that made him slowly ease his foot off the accelerator. At first, the shape in the distance looked like nothing more than a shadow standing in the road ahead of Marcus's headlights. The camera mounted on his dashboard continued recording as he slowed the car to a cautious crawl. As the vehicle moved closer, the figure became more defined, revealing the outline of a person standing directly in the middle of the asphalt. Marcus lowered the window slightly and called out to ask if the person needed help. The forest remained silent except for the sound of his engine idling. The figure didn't answer, didn't move, and didn't even turn its head toward him. As the headlights illuminated the scene more clearly, Marcus realized the silhouette in front of him wasn't a single person. Several figures were standing extremely close together, their bodies almost overlapping in the darkness so that their shapes blended into one shadow from a distance. Each of them faced the car directly, their expressions impossible to read in the glare of the headlights. None of them blinked, none of them shifted their stance. They simply stared forward with the same stillness that witnesses had described in earlier reports. Marcus felt a cold sensation crawl across the back of his neck as he reached slowly for the gear shift. At that exact moment, the audio recorder captured something Marcus did not initially hear. When investigators later reviewed the footage, they noticed faint whispers layered beneath the sound of the car engine. Dozens of voices seemed to be speaking at once, overlapping in a low murmur that was almost impossible to understand at normal speed. When the audio was slowed down, the voices became clearer. They were repeating a single word over and over again in quiet, breathless tones. The word was simple, but the way it was spoken made it sound like a command. Marcus pressed the accelerator and drove directly past the silent group, his headlights sweeping across the forest as the car sped down the road. More figures were emerging from the darkness, stepping slowly toward the road as if responding to the sound of the engine. They did not chase the vehicle or run after it. They simply stood there watching as Marcus disappeared into the night. The final seconds of the footage showed dozens of motionless silhouettes standing beneath the trees, all facing the road. The next morning, Marcus uploaded his video footage to the internet. He included a detailed explanation of his entire investigation into County Road 17. He laid out every step, every lead, every strange occurrence that had brought him to that final, chilling confrontation in the dark. Within hours, the video exploded. It spread like wildfire across forums, social media, and message boards. The internet was buzzing with debate. Was it real? Was it an elaborate, well-executed hoax? The comment sections were a battlefield of opinions. Skeptics immediately jumped in, arguing the figures were just kids in costumes, pranksters trying to create a local legend. They said the stiff movements were intentional, part of the act. But for every skeptic, there was a believer, someone who pointed out the deeply unsettling details that were so hard to dismiss. The figures in the video, they noted, didn't seem to breathe. In the cold night air, there were no puffs of condensation from their mouths. Their eyes didn't blink, not once, even with Marcus's high beams blasting directly into their faces. They showed no natural reaction to the blinding light, no squinting, no turning away, no raising a hand to shield their eyes. They just stood there, motionless and unnerving, like statues carved from shadow. The longer people watched, the more these subtle oddities gnawed at them, turning simple skepticism into a creeping sense of dread. A few days later, the video vanished. It was scrubbed from every platform it had been uploaded to. The official explanations cited concerns about spreading misinformation and the potential for encouraging others to trespass in what was now being called a restricted area. Marcus was furious. He publicly protested the takedown, his voice filled with a desperate urgency. He insisted that what he had captured wasn't a hoax. It was something real, something that demanded a serious, official investigation. He argued that hiding the evidence was not only irresponsible, but dangerous. The public had a right to know what was lurking on that lonely stretch of road. But in the fast-paced world of online news cycles, his protests were quickly drowned out. The controversy surrounding County Road 17 began to fade as new stories, new outrages, and new memes captured the public's attention. The internet moved on. Most people forgot about the strange video and the man who filmed it. Life returned to normal. But then, 3 weeks after Marcus posted his video, something happened that no one could ignore. Marcus Hale disappeared. His car was found abandoned late one night, right in the middle of County Road 17. The engine was still running, its low hum cutting through the silent woods. The driver's side door was wide open, as if he had left in a sudden hurry. A frantic search was launched. Police and volunteers combed the surrounding forest for days, their flashlights cutting through the dense trees, their voices calling his name into the darkness. But they found nothing. Not a footprint, not a broken twig, not a single sign of Marcus Hale. Inside the car, sitting on the passenger seat, investigators found the same digital audio recorder Marcus had used during his original trip. It was the one piece of equipment he never went anywhere without. The device held one final, terrifying recording. The file was short, lasting only a few seconds. But what it contained was enough to send a chill down the spine of even the most hardened, skeptical investigator on the case. In the recording, you can hear Marcus's voice, He's speaking quietly, almost whispering into the darkness. His tone isn't scared, not in the way you'd expect. It's confused, bewildered, like someone witnessing something so impossible. His brain can't quite process it. He sounds like a man trying to describe a scene that defies all logic and reason. And then, just before the recording abruptly ends, he says one single haunting sentence. They're standing in the road again. The audio cuts to perfect silence. That's it. That was the last anyone ever heard from Marcus Hale. No other clues were ever found. His disappearance became another local ghost story, a cautionary tale whispered in the small town of Silver Pines. The official case file remains open, but it gathers dust in a forgotten cabinet. To this day, the locals warn travelers, especially those new to the area, to avoid County Road 17. They'll tell you to take the long way around, no matter how late it is, because they believe that if you ever find yourself driving down that road after midnight, you might just see them too, standing silently in the glow of your headlights, waiting.